Hello everyone. Welcome to today's story. On a stormy night, CEO Alex cried out Tuna's name, but she was gone. Why did she leave? Was it the test result? Or because she thought Alex betrayed her with his secretary? As Tuna wandered through the rain with her child, Alex collapsed in fever, still whispering her name. Will love bring them back together, or will doubt tear them apart? And who is Adam, the stranger offering Tuna shelter, a savior, or another twist of fate? Stay with us until the end to uncover the silence, the questions, and the fragile hope that remains. Don't forget to subscribe and help us reach 10,000 followers. Your support keeps these stories alive. The night was drowned in rain, its silver threads weaving across the empty fields and lonely roads. Alex's footsteps echoed against the soaked earth, his breath ragged, his suit clinging to his skin like chains of regret. He had searched the farm, the nearby streets, even the caves she once visited, but every path ended in silence. The darkness offered him no answer, only the sound of rain striking against tin roofs and broken branches. Tuna. His voice cracked, carried away by the storm. The name fell again and again from his lips, as if calling her back could undo the distance she had carved between them. His eyes stung, not just from the rain, but from the dread that hollowed him out. Where could she have gone with her mother and child at this hour? Every corner of the night mirrored his desperation. Streetlights flickered like fading hope. Shadows stretched like unspoken guilt. He remembered her gaze the last time they stood together. Quiet, heavy, filled with questions he had no chance to answer. Now that look haunted him, sharper than any storm. His mind spiraled with fear. What if she had nowhere to stay? What if the rain found her carrying the child through these merciless roads? He pressed a trembling hand to his chest, trying to steady the chaos within. The clock neared midnight, and still the streets yielded nothing but solitude. Somewhere between the thunderclaps, Alex whispered into the night, not knowing if she could hear. "Don't leave me. Come back to me." The silence that followed was heavier than the storm itself. The storm did not only fall from the sky, it raged within Tuna's heart. Hours before she vanished, her world had splintered into doubt. The crumpled sheet of medical results lay like a cruel mirror, but it was not only numbers and words that drove her away. What burned deeper was the image that refused to leave her mind. Alex with his secretary. The subtle closeness, the whispers she had glimpsed. It seared her like fire in the veins. She tried to tell herself it was nothing, that perhaps she had misunderstood. Yet in silence, suspicion grew louder than truth. Could the man she trusted, the man who once promised her safety, have betrayed her? Each memory with him now flickered uncertain, like candles trembling in the wind. Love still lived in her, fierce and aching, but it now shared its home with fear. Meanwhile, Alex walked through the rain with his own ghosts. He replayed every moment he should have spoken, every chance he had to reassure her, but instead remained silent. He remembered the day she looked at him differently, eyes no longer soft, but shadowed with doubt. That unspoken question between them had stretched wider than oceans. If only he could explain, if only she would let him stand before her long enough to say, "It wasn't what you think." But the night swallowed his words before they were born. The truth stood on the edge of a knife. Was he a man guilty of betrayal, or a victim of misunderstanding too late to mend? Between them lay not just distance, but the fragile line between love and ruin. Tuna's footsteps pressed into the wet earth, each one heavy with doubt and exhaustion. The child in her arms slept, his soft breath a fragile rhythm against the chaos outside. She pulled her shawl tighter, shielding him from the wind, though she herself trembled from the cold. Behind her stretched the memory of the farm, of Alex's voice calling her name. Yet before her lay only the unknown. The first place she sought was shelter. An abandoned shack, its roof half collapsed, offered a brief reprieve. She laid the child down gently, listening to the sound of raindrops leaking through broken beams. It was not a home, only a pause, yet even here she felt the ache of displacement. Her stomach tightened with hunger, but she silenced it with resolve. Tomorrow, she told herself, she would find work. Morning arrived pale and merciless. Tuna carried her child into town, past shuttered shops and busy kitchens spilling the smell of bread and soup. At one restaurant, she bowed politely, asking for a chance to wash dishes. The owner glanced at the child and shook his head. "You can't. With a baby, it's impossible." At another, the same refusal echoed, this time sharper, like a door slammed against her hope. Her arms grew heavier, not only from the weight of the child, but from the invisible burden of rejection. She whispered to him, "Be good. Stay with me." The boy's eyes blinked open, innocent, unaware of the storm his mother carried within. And so she walked on, through streets that did not welcome her, beneath skies that seemed determined to test how far a heart could endure before breaking. By the second night, Alex's body had begun to betray him. The cold rain that soaked through his clothes clung to his lungs, and fever spread like fire beneath his skin. Yet still, his lips formed her name, Tuna, whispered in broken tones, as though the syllables themselves could guide him to her. He staggered back toward the farmhouse, his vision blurred, every corner of the night haunted by absence. When Johnny arrived, his face was drawn with shame. He confessed the truth. The result paper, carelessly left behind, had likely been the spark that drove Tuna away. "I was supposed to keep it safe," Johnny muttered, his voice trembling. "Instead, I destroyed her trust." Alex listened in silence, his chest rising and falling with a storm of anger, not at Johnny but at fate itself. One mistake had unraveled everything. The two men sat in the dim glow of a lantern, rain hammering the roof. Between them stretched years of unspoken rivalry and uneasy alliance, but tonight those walls crumbled, their voices lowered into resolve. They would search together. If the world had turned against them, they would defy it as one. Yet beneath Alex's determination pulsed a deeper torment. Was the paper truly the reason Tuna left? Or had the shadows of his closeness with the secretary already poisoned her heart? He remembered her gaze, the way it lingered with suspicion, and the silence he had offered instead of clarity. The weight of that silence now pressed harder than the fever in his veins. And so, exhausted but unyielding, Alex and Johnny prepared to comb the darkness once more. Two men bound not only by urgency, but by guilt. The rain had eased into a mist when Tuna stumbled upon the old lumber factory. Its iron gates hung crooked, its walls scarred by time, but inside there was at least a roof to shield her child. She settled in a corner, clutching him close, whispering lullabies against the hollow echo of dripping water. The emptiness of the place mirrored the silence in her heart, a silence filled with questions she dared not answer. It was there she met Adam. He appeared at the doorway, his figure outlined by the pale light. At first, fear stiffened her spine. Who was this stranger, and why had fate led him here at this exact hour? His voice, however, was calm, almost gentle. He explained he had come to inspect the factory, that he was considering buying it. Yet when his eyes fell on her, soaked and trembling with a child in her arms, his tone shifted. "You can't stay here," he said softly. "It isn't safe. If you have nowhere to go, I can take you to a relative of mine. They live alone. You and the baby would be warm, at least for tonight." Tuna hesitated. Every instinct told her to guard herself, to run from what she could not trust. But she looked down at the child's face, so small, so unaware, and felt the weight of the choice. The rain had soaked through his blanket, his lips pressed together in restless sleep. Her heart wrestled between suspicion and need. She had left one home in doubt. Was she now to step into another, equally uncertain? And yet, perhaps for her son's sake, she had no choice but to follow. The world seemed split into two fragile realms, one where Alex burned with fever, the other where Tuna sat in unfamiliar silence, on his bed. Alex's body shivered under damp sheets, yet even in delirium he whispered her name. His sister placed a cool cloth on his forehead, watching the torment etched into his face. "Even in this state," she murmured, "he thinks only of her." The sight revealed a truth Alex himself could not hide. His love for Tuna was not fleeting, but carved deep enough to survive even illness. Across town, Tuna cradled her child within Adam's acquaintance's small house. The roof was intact. The air smelled faintly of wood and old earth, better than the abandoned factory. Yet her heart could not settle. She stared into the flickering lamplight, replaying the images of Alex and his secretary like a cruel film reel. Was it betrayal? Or had her fears woven illusions that drove her away? Her child stirred, small fingers curling against her arm. She kissed his forehead, whispering promises she herself did not fully believe. That she would protect him. That she would endure. Still, her gaze lingered at the window where rain traced crooked lines, as if urging her to choose between returning to the storm she had fled or remaining in the fragile shelter of strangers. Meanwhile, Alex's fever dream tangled with regret. He saw Tuna's eyes, filled with doubt, retreating into the distance, and his own silence choking every chance to explain. His chest tightened, as though the rain itself had seeped inside. Between them stretched not miles, but a silence heavy enough to drown. Two worlds, parallel yet tethered by the same question: love or mistrust, return or departure. Dawn broke with a sky still heavy from rain, its pale light carrying no comfort. Alex sat at the edge of his bed, weakened yet unyielding. Fever lingered in his veins, but resolve burned brighter. He whispered into the quiet room, "Tuna, I'll find you." His voice cracked, but in it lived a vow, fragile yet relentless. He knew the search would not be easy, that every mile might reveal only shadows. But surrender was a language he refused to speak. Far away, Tuna sat by a narrow window, the child asleep against her shoulder. Adam's acquaintance had offered warmth and food, yet the comfort only deepened her unrest. She traced the rim of the cup in her hands, mind circling back to the same wound. the sight of Alex with his secretary. Her heart wanted to dismiss it as a mistake, an illusion of circumstance. But suspicion had grown roots. Did he betray me? Or did I betray us by doubting? She whispered into the dim room. The question remained unanswered, hanging between past and present like mist between mountains. Her child stirred, and she pressed him closer. His innocent weight reminded her that every decision she made carved not only her path, but his. Could she return and face Alex, risking the pain of truth? Or should she walk forward into a future without him, uncertain but free from betrayal? The rain outside ceased, leaving only the sound of dripping leaves. Alex rose to prepare for another day of searching. Tuna closed her eyes, leaning into silence, and between them stretched a fragile thread, love caught between storm and calm, trust and doubt, betrayal and forgiveness. And so the rain has stopped, but the storm inside their hearts still lingers. Will Tuna return to face Alex, or will she walk away forever? Was his love true, or only a fragile illusion? Some questions remain unanswered. Just like life itself, where silence often speaks louder than words. If this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe and help us reach 10,000 followers. Every click is a small light that keeps these stories alive until the day we discover the truth together.